Yep, good game. Drive safe. Here I am again at the end of a session where I procrastinated on my prep. And it would have been a much better game if I hadn't. I'm just a procrastinator. Or at least that's how I thought of myself until I suddenly wasn't. And in this 4-part guide, I'm going to show you how I changed by going through why you don't actually thrive under pressure, the underlying biology that means you're not lazy, why your previous attempts at thwarting procrastination haven't worked, and what does actually work. All in service of getting prep done sooner so our games go better. By the way, hi, I'm Grant Breeze, and this place is Mossy Antler, where we find meaning in our games. But our games can't be meaningful if we don't prep them. You think your players are going to be moved by you improvising everything? Sometimes it can, but I'm not going to wait around for that to happen by itself, so that means I gotta prepare. And while I don't think procrastination can be permanently solved, I do know it can be improved. Come on, I'll show you what I figured out. What's wrong with me? Why do I keep avoiding prep if I care about this game so much? No, I can't think like that. The pressure is making it worse. I am someone who used to put everything off until the last minute. Part of me really just believes I thrive under pressure. It feels like that last minute panic drives me to perform with some heightened ability. Like, it's now or never. Putting all your eggs in one basket makes that basket really important. But I can also run sessions really well with the right preparation when I'm not in a panic. So which one's better? Well, I think for those of us who say we thrive under pressure, we're only good at it because we've practiced it. We've put ourselves in positions many times where things are down to the wire, and it's actually the repeated exposure to those situations that makes us better. It's like exercising a muscle. Dadi of Mystic Arts talks a little bit about this idea in his quantity over quality video, which I'm in, by the way, so you should totally go check it out or whatever. My point is, you don't cram before a performance in an orchestra, and 11th hour essays almost never get A's. You don't thrive under pressure, you've survived under pressure so far because you've had to. And now, I can hear you through the screen. Easy for you to say, Grant, but I need that pressure in order to act at all. And yeah, fair enough, I'm often the same way. That pressure can make us act by forcing us into the flow state, which feels pretty good while you're in it. When there's no pressure, it's way too easy to fall into being bored or getting distracted. We'll come back to that. So what's going on here? If we typically run a better game when we take our time to prepare, why do we wait to act until there's pressure? Basically, why do we procrastinate at all? Well, it's not laziness. You're not lazy, there's no such thing. Hear me out. Procrastination is not a bug, it's a feature of human evolution. In the wild, if you are in a habit of wasting energy, you won't last very long. Efficient energy conservation causes survival, and you can't pass on your genetic code if you're not alive to do so. That is the environment our ancestors were shaped in. That means the very genes that cause us to avoid unnecessary effort, to do the feel-good, easy thing now, and to prioritize waiting to act until the pressures are high are the same genes that got passed down to the next generation. The biggest energy-wasting genes simply don't get inherited. The energy-conserving genes do. And that means in a world with finite energy, delaying action isn't laziness, it's genetic strategy. You might not like it, but this is what peak performance looks like. The truth is, if you procrastinate, you're doing it right, at least in terms of how you're predisposed to act. And so, we will never win this war of procrastination with ourselves because it's hardwired in. But don't get depressed about that yet. Remember, there's always a path forward. We just have to find it. We live in a modern world and we want to move past our primitive programming. I think that's built in too. By the way, the genes being passed on thing applies to most human tendencies, including our fear of rejection. It might be one of your reasons for really not wanting the game to go bad. It is for me. Rejection stings so much because if it didn't, you wouldn't have a problem with being rejected, which isn't a great strategy for reproducing. So humans want to belong. Anyways, if it's in our nature to delay, what do we do about it? Well, now that we know the underlying mechanics and we can accept there's nothing fundamentally wrong with us, we're just humans doing human things, we need to look at what's going on from an internal experiential perspective. And for me, that looks like a conflict between two things. My own desire in wanting my games to be great experiences for my players, let's call that galvanized, and any negative feeling that opposes being galvanized, which we'll call the resistance. And when I look closely at what the resistance is, the first thing I find is the feeling of not knowing what to do next, or not knowing where to effectively apply my willpower, which I'm gonna reframe and name something else in a moment. But as soon as I feel that and label it, let's call it ignorance anxiety, because I have no idea what I'm doing doesn't quite have the same ring to it. I already feel better by identifying it. We'll come back to that technique as well. And that ignorance anxiety leads in to the other resistance feelings I have that stop galvanization. It's like, I'm not gonna waste time prepping even a little bit of the next session unless when I sit down, I can figure out every single thing I need. Some people call that perfectionism, which is maybe like an elevated version of that feeling. But if that word doesn't resonate with you, I think of it as waiting to feel ready. But feeling ready isn't really possible, because feeling ready means having already lived through the experience of the very thing you're about to do. You're wanting to know what to do and how to do it before doing it. You'd need time travel for that, which, if you've ever put time travel in your adventures, you already know how messy that can get. Something weird about our craft is that there are no right answers. You can GM in so many ways, and as long as you and your players are having fun, you'll want to keep playing. And not having right answers or an obvious path forward creates that ignorance anxiety, that resistance. When we're trying to overcome the resistance, we tend to do it in one of two ways that are both bad. But anytime in life when we're presented with the requirement of choosing one of two paths, there is always a third way. You just have to look for it. Choosing both or neither, or not making a choice, or rejecting the question, or choosing your own option. So of course, that's what we're going to do here. The first way to get over the resistance is to push through using willpower. You need to prep something, so you force yourself to sit down, and that works for a little while, or it works some of the time. You trudge through.
You know, trudging? To trudge, the slow, weary, depressing yet determined walk of a man who has nothing left in his life except the impulse to simply soldier on.
But eventually we run out of steam and snap back to video games or insidious vertical videos or whatever. And it's not like prep is the only thing to spend your energy on. We're also procrastinating taking out the trash and doing laundry and writing this very YouTube script. No, wait, that one's just me. If you can always do what you should be doing by force of will, I think that's amazing. Can you tell us how you do that in the comments? But for me, that is draining and unsustainable. I've tried that route many times. And I don't think willpower is really what's going on here. It doesn't ring true for me. The way I think of it is more like, all I have is my time and attention and whatever energy I have to focus my attention during that time. The second way to overcome the resistance is by increasing the pressure, the guilt, or the self-expectations. For me, guilt is like this spike-covered ball that I'm trying to hold on to tighter and tighter while it drips with the ooze of expectation. Drop in the comments your own horrific vision of guilt so I can put it in front of my players. You can make up synthetic deadlines, like, I will outline this adventure by end of day tomorrow. You can block out time on your calendar, or you can tell yourself that your identity aligns with someone who doesn't postpone. And of course, we have the very real deadline of the upcoming session. That all can help. Expectation leads to pressure, which leads to stress, which sometimes leads to action.
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
But for me, that pressure tends to cause me to act inauthentically, which burns me out. And if I don't act after telling myself I will, I just feel guilty and stupid, and I don't trust myself to make similar promises in the future, which isn't motivating. If anything, it's the opposite. It might be obvious to you by now that this video isn't just about procrastinating your RPG prep, but anything. You can bet I'm going to make more videos about happiness and mental health through an RPG lens in the future, and you can subscribe to stick around to see that. Now let's talk about the third way. You ever go on an energizing long walk or get a really great night of sleep and become really inspired? Like suddenly all the ideas are coming easy and you can see the path forward. There it is. I'm going to run the ultimate game, or I'm going to change all my bad habits, or I'm going to finally polish that adventure so it can be published. Your life is going to be in order. Your life is going to be different. You are going to be different. And then that doesn't happen. We have our galvanized side and we have our resistance. The two sides are at war. The problem with the first two ways is that we're trying to have one side win. We'll come back to that. But as we established earlier, resistance doesn't go away. It's built in. The passion of feeling inspired can focus attentional energy, and it can harness pressure to turn an obligation into an enjoyable challenge. But passion is fleeting. Even if you're not relying on the strength of some temporary positive emotion, shouldn't it be logical? Make a pros and cons list, and it'll become obvious, right? On one side, we have prepping diligently. The pros are we fulfill our goal of making a game that engages our players, and we get to express ourselves creatively. This is what we want. The pros should outweigh everything. The cons are the costs of effort and the discomfort of when your skills don't match your tastes and you have to confront your own lack of expertise, ignorance, anxiety, and probably more. There's actually quite a bit of resistance here. On the other side, we have something like playing video games. Pros, it's fun. It feels great because you don't have to think about anything else. They completely absorb your attention. It's easy. It requires little effort. Cons are, they take up time. That con feels big in retrospect, but doesn't really feel that costly in the moment. We think we're doing a simple equation. We weigh the pros and cons to get a net positive, and obviously we should move in that direction. But the problem is the equation changes as we live it. The costs on the prep side are too high, and the costs on the video game side aren't that much. It's too easy to swing over here, even though what we want is really much more over here. We're simultaneously pushed in opposite directions. But the more you move toward one choice, the more its disadvantages become clear and potent, and the advantages on the other side become more tempting. The grass is always greener, and so the pendulum swings the other way. We're not paralyzed, it's not inaction, we're conflicted, it's bouncing between. This is ambivalence. By the way, if you're enjoying this, leaving a like does a lot to spread it to more folks who will appreciate it too. So what do we do about this? The first thing to do, especially if the costs of the task are feeling big, is to ask, what can I do? Bargain with yourself. Bump it down just one step. Can't prep an entire adventure? Just prep the next session. Can't prep the next session? Do a scene or two. Can't do that? Create one NPC. When I tell you that, just create one NPC, where does your mind immediately go? That's not good enough. You have to do it all, or you may as well not even start. If I'm going to dig a well and I know the water table is down 100 feet, digging a 5-foot hole isn't going to get me water. It's literally a waste of effort. But that's black and white thinking. If you have it in you to dig a 50-foot hole, dig that 50-foot hole. If you only have it in you to dig 20 feet, do that. I talk more about digging holes on the Mossy Antler Patreon. Yes, really, where you can read about that and get other things like extra videos by supporting me at the lichen level or higher, because maybe you've taken a liking to me. There's even a free tier if you just want the occasional update or to join our Discord. Anyways, the basic issue is that we are looking for things to be easy. Energy conservation, remember? We are looking for absolution from making a decision. But you can't live life in a pain-free way. Often the hardest part is moving that dial from 0 to 1. Starting. When I can't start, it's because I can't figure out how to lower the stakes. My skills don't match my tastes, and that leads me to having high standards of myself. Too high to ever meet. What has helped me, in spite of not being able to meet my own criteria, is committing to the fact that my game will not be as beautiful and engaging as I want. Embracing the suck, because that's how we get better.
Apparently, I suck at being nonviolent.
Dude, sucking at something is the first step towards being sorta good at something.
And it's not just embracing the suck of my own skills, it's embracing the suck of the pendulum. It's a resolve that even though I'm going to miss out on video game time, even though I'm going to feel lost and frustrated and foolish, and it all might fall apart when the session starts, I'm going to commit to the suck. The suck, will you marry me? Wait, I'm already married. Who wrote this? The other thing that really helped me is not knowing what happens next and embracing that. I think a large part of the suck is uncertainty. The future is uncertain, but that's a good thing. It means the world is open for play. The more you can see each next step as play, the more you lower the stakes. If you saw a child painting, would you chastise them for not emulating Monet? No. So why are you any different? Why aren't you allowed to play and make messes too? The way to label resistance feelings, to make small progress, even though it feels like you have to do it all or nothing, and to embrace the suck, is by paying closer attention to your emotions. It's the recognition and then radical acceptance of your emotions that diminish the power they hold over you. How about a weird metaphor to explain? You are a salmon in the river of your life. You're swimming along, finding food, doing whatever salmon do. Even if there are currents or changing temperatures, you're not really thinking about the water. You're just swimming. But we're not salmon, we're people, and that means we can stick our heads up out of the river, take a deep breath, and see that we are being swept downstream. When you postpone, it's because of some negative emotion your brain wants to avoid, and unless you're paying close attention to your experience, you will be swept along the river without realizing it, and all of a sudden, a deadline is upon you. You're probably so used to avoiding these negative emotions that you're not even realizing when they're bubbling up. If you're like me, you open some app to distract yourself with. I've gotten a lot better at noticing the resistance by developing a meditation habit. But whenever you happen to notice yourself avoiding something, try literally saying it out loud. Expressing the emotion helps us process it. I don't know what to prep next and I feel stupid. Or I'm worried that my prep won't be creative enough to wow my players. It really does feel better just saying that. I am sometimes worried that my prep won't be good enough, and that's where a lot of my procrastination comes from. This all doesn't include burnout. If you're procrastinating due to exhaustion, that's another issue entirely. Same thing with over-prepping. It's not procrastination if you're just giving yourself so much to do that you don't have the time and energy to do it. Hobbies can have vast ranges of how many hours people dedicate to them, of course, but I think a healthy upper limit is 10 to 20 hours a week before a big campaign has started and you really want to create something from scratch for a month or so. When I'm running, the upper limit I set for myself is double the amount of hours we're playing, but I really try to keep it to at or below the number of hours we're playing. A 4-hour session for me usually means 4 hours or less of prep, and I would never prep more than around 8 hours for a single session. Obviously, your mileage may vary. This is going to vary from person to person, and if you can really afford to put more into it without becoming too stressed out or out of balance in other places in your life, then it's probably fine. You do you. Just make sure you're being honest with yourself about those things. And try not to beat yourself up if you're not suddenly different after watching this video. Change doesn't happen overnight. YouTube thinks you'll like this video next, and if you like my shirt, you can get your own and other dope shirts at mossyantler.com. And remember, there's always a path forward. Now go find it.